All right, we are recording. Thanks, everyone. And again, please be comfortable. We have drinks here. If you have something to drink or eat, feel free to do so. Renee's getting in the spirit. Thank you, Renee. And other than that, we'll get started. Again, there are no financial disclosures for this presentation. We're here, the Hub team, the Yale Survivorship team at Yale. Again, I'm Jevin. Just quickly, we'll go around the room. Each person can just say who they are briefly.
Hi, I'm Angelique Williams. I am the program coordinator for the Survivorship Clinic.
I'm Reed. I'm a second-year grad student here at Yale.
Angela Corella, the clinical social worker in the Survivorship Clinic.
I'm Scott Capozza. I'm the physical therapist for the Survivorship Clinic. I'm also monitoring the chat room, so I apologize if I'm looking at the computer. I am not on Amazon, I promise.
Hi, I'm Laura Harrigan. I'm the dietitian.
And I'm Tara Stamped. I'm the oncologist and the director of the clinic, and excited to be here today for number 2.
All right, thanks everyone, appreciate that. And just a few reminders before we get started. One, thank you everyone who has sent back any post-session surveys. As a quick reminder, we do have that. That'll go out in the email following today's session. Please send that for suggestions on the session today and feedback. Again, the case presentation form will go out as well. I know we haven't gotten one yet, but if you do wish to present a case on a patient you've seen, feel free to send that back within 2 days of the session. If you want to review it or do a mock presentation, feel free to let us know in advance of that as well. And then again, today's materials will be posted on Vox. All right, so we're going to get started. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and bring up our presentation for today. We're going to be talking about the nuts and bolts of the Survivorship Clinic. And let me just make this full screen. There we go. And just to let you know today's session's agenda, I kept it general as it had been in the past. We did the introductions and some announcements. We have our presentation now. We're going to integrate the discussion questions and answers into our presentation today. So we'll aim for that to be around 25 to 30 minutes or so. And then, of course, depending on how much time we have left from that, we do have a case presentation as well, and then some concluding statements. With the didactic, again, if you have questions, feel free to enter into the chat box if you have a question, and we can call on you, okay? All right, so we're going to start with today's presentation on the nuts and bolts of our Survivorship Clinic. There are no financial disclosures for the presentation. And some objectives for today's session. We're going to talk about the new survivorship guidelines, who's eligible to attend the Survivorship Clinic, how referrals are made, how billing is handled, the sources of funding for the program, the setting for a Survivorship Clinic, talk a little bit about the intake forms, some common referrals to other services, and the survivorship care plans, but we'll keep that part brief as we're planning to talk about that in the future as well. All right.
Okay, so this is Tara. I'm the director, and I'm also the oncologist on the team. And I guess I wanted to mention this up front because this is late breaking news. I think it came out about 2 weeks ago now. This is the Commission on Cancer, which is for those of you who maybe aren't familiar, it's a organization run through the American College of Surgeons that goes around and looks at all different cancer centers and has a set of guidelines that you have to meet in order to become a comprehensive cancer center, as awarded by the Commission on Cancer. And they have a lot of standards that each cancer program has to prove they're doing in order to even be considered for comprehensive status. They've had a survivorship standard for many years, and it has included an emphasis of survivorship care plan delivery. And some of you may have signed up for this ECHO in particular because of the pressures to give survivorship care plans. It's, as somebody who's been in charge of this at our institution, it's frankly been a struggle. We see 8,000 new cases a year, and we're supposed to give almost all of them, stage 1, 2, and 3 care plans within the year of diagnosis. So, so that being said, this was not, we were not unique in that situation. A lot of places had trouble meeting those guidelines, and based on a lot of that kind of feedback, and in addition to the fact that they haven't been borne out in the literature to really change outcomes in a meaningful way to date, the Commission on Cancer has revised their standard, and it is what you see here on the screen. So standard 4.8 is a survivorship program standard, and it really calls on what we're talking about in ECHO, which is a comprehensive approach to survivorship care and making sure all patients have access to survivorship care, and that there are comprehensive teams that are involved with this. Is this the next slide? Yep. Okay. So as you can see here, the suggested specialties for a program include a lot of your specialties of people who are on the phone and who we have in the room. And the Commission recommends that 3 services are offered each year, and I think I'm not really clear on exactly what all that means, but I think the effort is to start with something and then build on that and show that patients have access to these services, whatever's reasonable within your scope. And then in terms of the survivorship care plan, it's encouraged, but it is not a required component of the standard. So, so that's what you see here, and I think it's exciting. I think it's much more meaningful to patients to have access to these potential services, and I look forward to hearing your feedback too on how you might start to think about this.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay.
Hi, Angelique, I'm the coordinator. So all of the patients that are eligible for the survivorship clinic are men and women. They're over 21. Any cancer diagnosis, they do have to be completed with their active treatment. They also can be on maintenance or hormonal therapy and stable metastatic disease. We also have, Dr. Sands has a long-term breast clinic for breast patients that are 5 years out from their complete treatment, and she sees them, and they're also eligible for the survivorship clinic as well.
Okay, so I guess I want to say too that we're kind of going through this. I don't know if anybody's chatting in any questions yet. Okay, so let me go through this part, and then we can pause and maybe we can share our faces again. And if anybody has a question, we could stop and ask. I know there was a lot of specifics that had come back in the feedback after the first session. So how do we get referrals? Well, before there was Epic, it was all kind of word of mouth, and certain physicians referred all their patients, and some referred none. When we got Epic, we made sure that they put in an order, and you can see here a screenshot of the order entry tab in Epic, and we had them put in something that was really general and easy to find. So if you put in Survivor or SURV, this will come up. Anyone can enter this order. It does not need to be, co-signed by a physician, and it's easy to find, and we kind of take it from there. So once the patient's referred, we don't require a ton of information in that order. We basically chart check and then reach out to the patient. We also have a system of self-referral. So we have a brochure, and we keep it in all the waiting rooms. We are advertised on the internet. We do commercials sometimes, and we've done community outreach events. And so we have patients contact us that have heard of us either through those means or through another patient that they've talked to, an infusion, etc. We don't turn anyone away, and we don't require the team to agree with that referral, for instance. A new strategy that we've tried since January has been in the breast center, which is a natural place to try something like this. Number one, I'm also a breast oncologist. Number two, there's a ton of breast cancer survivors. And number three, we have a very supportive group that really believes in all of this. So we have started placing a survivorship referral with every early stage initial consult. And this has resulted in hundreds more people being referred in the last 10 months. And Kiki can speak to the experiences of having to deal with that list, but we know that all the patients that are being seen at least are being referred, and we are getting to them. It takes some time, right, because they have to get through their treatment. And there's some challenges, I think, with basically cold calling a patient and talking to them about this. And they've heard about it at the initial visit, but a lot of patients don't remember what's told on that first day. So we've seen an uptick in referrals. We are seeing an uptick in the volume of our patients being seen, and this could be something that we could try to upscale to other disease sites. I think we're still kind of getting some experience with it here. In terms of the challenges that we've seen, and you can show me, I guess, again. In all honesty, we have to go and talk to providers frequently. So I've given 3 grand rounds since I started in 2010, probably more than any of my colleagues, and we've done lots and lots of in-services. And the truth is that staff move along, and there's new staff that comes on, and so you're on people's minds for a while, and then you're not again. And so we kind of have to always remind people that where we are. We've tried getting buy-in through like the pathways system where we order the chemotherapy and making it like a end of chemotherapy order. And because we're such a large system, when we turned that on, there were literally hundreds of orders being placed or referrals through the pathway system every day. And so that's been, that was a monster of a pilot, and that didn't pan out. So, I'm curious to hear from the group if you've experienced buy-in issues, if you've tried different things to try to get more patients into survivorship services. We're always open for creative ideas. The physicians are getting it more and more and more. I have to say, nobody wants to give up their patients, so that's how we are a consult service. We don't follow patients on an annual basis. We don't take over their care because the sentiment has been, at least so far, that the oncologists still want to remain intimately involved, and so that's how we are a consult service. But we also feel that we give patients a lot of information at those visits, and that anyone who needs to come back can come back, but most people feel pretty comfortable taking it from there.
Oh, sure. Hi, it's Maura. I wear another hat as a dietitian, where I'm project director on a study called the LEAN study, which is lifestyle, exercise, and nutrition. And also fortunate that Tara is one of the PIs on the study. So it's a healthy eating and exercise intervention for breast cancer patients in active treatment, in chemo. And it's randomized, so we have a usual care group. So the intervention group gets the healthy eating and exercise intervention, but the usual care group gets usual care. So, but we define usual care as also receiving survivorship clinic services. So we set up our study protocol so that all the women randomized to usual care get funneled into survivorship clinic. So just bringing that up as another venue to get referrals, if you can build it into other research protocols. And that's been working out very nicely.
If I could interject just for a quick second, I just got a question from Mary. She was asking, how often do we see the patients as a consult service? So this is jumping ahead a little bit, but we see our patients, this is Scott, by the way, we see our patients usually twice for 2 visits. We have our initial visit where where the survivor meets with all 4 disciplines of the survivorship clinic. And then Kiki will schedule them usually 8, 10, 12 weeks later for a follow-up visit. And I think that the follow-up visit is good both for the survivor to check back in with the team, but it's also good for the team to know, hey, at our first meeting, this is what we talked about. These are some of the recommendations that we talked about. This is what I suggested. This is what Angela suggested. How is that going? Do we need to tweak anything? Maura suggested some changes. How is that working in your life? Do we keep things as they are? Do we change things around? And I like to tell survivors that survivorship is for the rest of your life. And so even after that second visit, we always tell survivors that our door is always open. And we have seen survivors come back 4 years later, 10 years later. So we don't put a cap as to when our survivors come back.
Thanks, Scott. And Jevin here again. I was just to piggyback off of what Scott said. Oftentimes we'll even see survivors coming back and they have a different set of concerns at the follow-up visit. Or again, they come back as needed for a third or fourth visit or so on, and they have a new set of concerns. And it sort of harkens back to what we talked about a little bit in the first session with regards to the phases of survivorship and how those concerns can morph over time as they progress from their time since diagnosis. So I think it's really a unique experience to be able to see that and address those concerns and meet them where they are at that time.
There's another question from Amanda. Tara, you might be able to answer this. So the 50% mandate for survivorship care plans from the COC is now dissolved. She just wants some clarification on that.
That's right. Now, I should point out that we do not have updated standards from the NAPBC. So for the National Accreditation Program for Breast Centers, that is a similar project sponsored by the American College of Surgeons that is specific to breast centers. And they also have a survivorship care plan standard. And they tend to try to reflect and mesh with the COC because they're under the same umbrella and it's a very similar process. But I am not aware that they've made any announcements. So according to 2 weeks ago, this is the new standard. It's the development of a comprehensive program and to have some services available and I can forward this to you, or I'm more than happy to talk more about it today, even if that's where we want the conversation to go. But it's new and hot off the press and very exciting. I hope that helps, Amanda.
Any others, Scott?
Yeah, Amanda also asked, so there are different models of care. Sounds like you are PA-led. She says that we are not here.
So you're right. There are multiple models of care. We're a hybrid. We're a consult model and a multidisciplinary model. And while Jevin is the lead who does a lot of the billing, and we're going to get to that point too, we've shared, and before there was Jevin, there was me, and then there was another person and another person that worked with me. So it is medical based in terms of like the billing, but it's a multidisciplinary consultative model, and we can go over other models that are out there. My long-term clinic is another separate thing that deals with long-term survivorship. And that's just physician-led, and it could be a PA or an APP who did that too. What else?
I think we're caught up. Amanda asked to please forward. I think hopefully that answered that question.
Yep, I'm happy to forward the new standard.
All right. So unless there were other questions, which doesn't sound like there are, we'll get back to the slideshow here. Let me just jump back in. Okay. And so now we're going to talk about some of the billing. I think Kiki.
Okay, Angelique, coordinator again. First question the patient asked me, how is this paid for? They asked me if it's covered by insurance. We bill as one MD visit. For the first initial visit, we do not charge for subsequent visits. But it is their first and
foremost question because they do see 4 providers. But as I explained to them, it is billed as one provider under insurance.
So as far as funding goes, the clinic actually got off the ground by philanthropic endeavors, and there was basically outside seed money that was given to the hospital to get the survivorship clinic started. Once the clinic got up and running, our hospital, the Smile Cancer Hospital, took over, and we get most of our funds now through a charity bike ride that generates several $1 million every year. So we obviously don't get all of that. That would be nice, but we do get a piece of the pie from those fundraising efforts. So that's where a good chunk of our funding comes from. But we also do get donations from grateful patients. We get donations from grateful families, and again from any other events that we might participate in throughout the community.
So I would say 2 things. Number one, about the billing, if you want to just go back real quick. So we as medical providers have to say what we do, right, and write a note and then bill accordingly. And so it is just billed as according to time. This is not a stethoscope exam. So we document all the things we talked about, and then we say how much time we spent counseling. And we bill it under the patient's diagnosis. So if they're coming in with breast cancer, it's billed as like a breast cancer follow-up. If it's lung cancer, et cetera, et cetera. We used to do 2 visits, or we used to do 3 visits, and we found that a lot of patients felt like they didn't need it, and so there were a lot of no-shows that were on our schedule, and so we've cut it down to 2 visits. Not every second visit is free of charge, so there are people who we spend a lot of time on, and we do bill for that time that we've spent. We're gonna get to, I guess, so the next slide with the funding. So how do we pay for 4 people when we're billing for 1 person? So the Closer to Free bike ride is the main funding source, and it's really helpful for those of you out there who are interested in this. It's any kind of fundraiser that a cancer program has. It's really nice as a survivorship team to have some funding from that, so that we can talk about all those things that all those riders there, you are helping fund the survivorship program. It's a really hopeful thing in the face of a really devastating disease. So we found it to be very mutually beneficial. So a couple things about that. We've never said no to any advertising, any opportunity to talk about Closer to Free. We usually do a commercial for them, and they follow us around clinic. And we always, try to be at the events and really show our support for the ride. And in turn, the people who run the money after the ride have been very generous to continue to keep us going. Now, in the logistics of things, part of my salary as a physician is carved out to be the survivorship director. Most of Jevin's salary is carved out to be the survivorship PA. He has a role in the breast center as well, but the vast majority of his time comes from our funding to support his salary. And over time, we've had our staff, Angela, Scott, and Maura, take on more and more roles in the system. So when we first started, and Maura and Scott, you can talk about this if you want, but we would pay for their time. So Maura had a job outside of here as well, and then we paid to have her come into our clinic. At first it was a half a day a week, and then over time it was a full day a week. And now, because she's so ensconced in our research endeavors, it's all just wrapped up into your job description. Scott also had a day job, as I would say, that we paid for his time to come in and work for us. And then that went from 4 hours to 8 hours. And now just recently, he's been hired on as a full-time onc rehab physical therapist who is navigating this brand new program that we've fought for and had awarded. So we're really excited. And they you can talk offline or online about Scott and how he's negotiated survivorship into that role. And Angela is also a salaried person within the hospital, and so she's been able to carve out. At first it was half a day, and now it's a full day that's dedicated to our clinic. We have not gotten carte blanche to just grow full-time, although Kiki's role used to be 3 days a week, and then when Kiki came on, it became 5 days a week. So we're slowly, incrementally getting more and more support, if you will, but we're certainly not a 5 days a week endeavor at this point. I can stop there. If there's any questions, please chat them in. But I hope that gave you some additional granularity to the funding aspects. Any questions?
If anybody has any questions that's on camera with us today or on the phone, feel free to unmute yourselves. Again, *6 if you're on the phone, or pressing the mute button in the bottom left if you're on video. All right, so I think we're question free for right now, so let's just jump right back in. Okay. So, sure.
So where we've physically lived since we were started in 2006, we were actually sharing space with with one of the infusion centers at the main hospital, because that was the only space that was available at that particular time. Again, we run our clinic 1 day a week. We've always been on a Wednesday. That's just the way that we set up our particular clinic. So yeah, so when we started, we were around the corner from one of the infusion centers here at the hospital before the Smilo Cancer Hospital actually was physically built. That was built in 2009. Once the main Smilo building, our main cancer hospital, was built in 2009, we moved into the building, and we were able to share some space again on the infusion floor, on the 4th floor of our building. We eventually moved downstairs from the 4th floor infusion downstairs to the 1st floor, where Smilo offers rehab services and complementary medicine, and we were able to talk with the teams down there so that we could have that space exclusively to our clinic every Wednesday. And so they were very willing to work with us, and they were able to negotiate their schedules as well, so that we could go in there. So for several years, we would have our patients come to the main building, the main Smilo Cancer Hospital building in downtown New Haven, which is all well and good. However, for those of you who know New Haven, the parking's not great. There's a lot of one-way streets. Usually there's a lot of construction. And Angela might be able to talk to a little bit about this as well at some point, that we're sure that there's probably a subset of patients who would have been treated at the main hospital, who may be experiencing some PTSD because of their treatment and may not necessarily wanted to come back to the actual physical hospital. So our network has grown over the past several years. Smilo Cancer Hospital has grown and is reaching out to community care centers throughout Southern Connecticut. And what we realized is that we can bring survivorship care out into the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be based within the 4 walls of the hospital itself. And what we found is that there are patients that we're able to reach more patients that way, because if a patient was already coming 30 miles to travel to get to the hospital, but if we're all of a sudden half that distance to them, it makes it a lot easier for them to come for a survivorship visit if we're that much closer to where they physically live. Again, our care centers have free parking, which is always a plus for a lot of our patients and for the staff as well. And so that's where we are right now. So every Wednesday we rotate to different care centers along Southern Connecticut. First Wednesday of the month we're at the main hospital, and then each week we go out to the different care centers. And those teams that where we go to those care centers, they expect us on those Wednesdays. They welcome us in. Again, through a lot of goodwill and a lot of open lines of communication have allowed us to move into those care centers.
And I just like to speak to, this is Maura, and since Scott and I have been at the clinic since the beginning, and we call it our dog and pony show. We've traveled as you know with the clinic, but when we if you go to the ideally, you'd like to have consultative space to do this work as opposed to an exam room, and you could see the difference. So at certain care centers, certain sites we go to, we're given an exam room. So as a dietitian, I don't necessarily want to work in an exam room. Sometimes I walk in and the patient's sitting up on the exam table. And I have to say, oh, no need to do that. You know, stay dressed, you know, sit in a chair and we'll talk about food. So if you can think about what your space is, survivors will, majority of them will say they prefer a non-clinical space because some of them don't want to go back anywhere near where they received their chemo or their radiation. So we've always tried to get space away from clinical space, but it's, you know, but that's in our ideal world. But we work with what we have. And in our ideal world, we would prefer non-clinical space, but we'll take what space we're given. But if we had our ideal space, it would include a little gym, it would have a kitchen demo facility. I would love to have some therapeutic gardening program and space to facilitate support groups and psychoeducation groups, and also space for relaxation, meditation, and teaching mindfulness techniques. So when you're thinking about where you'd like your clinic to be, think along these lines and ask for this. And we keep asking for it.
It's on the wish list.
It's on the wish list.
Okay, so let's stop here for 1 second. Can we go back to the? Oh, so that means sharing us,
sure.
our faces. So we have a few more slides talking about our intake forms and referrals to additional supportive services, but we also have the case presentation. And so just in the sense of democracy here, and also in the understanding the use of time, we'd like to get a vote. Would you like us to keep going through the intake forms and explaining those, or would you like us to move along to the case presentation and see how one of those will go? And so can we have you chat in? I think maybe, or unmute, I guess.
Yeah, either one.
Case presentation or intake forms?
Review slides.
Okay. That's one person, yeah.
One case study.
Okay.
One to one.
One to one.
1 to 1.
We of course wish we had time for both. I think we're gonna only be able to do one thing.
Want to say give it maybe another minute or two.
Let your voice be
Please
heard.
type your messages, case presentation or review slides.
And if you're on the phone again, you can *6 to unmute.
2 for slides.
2 for slides.
Yep.
We could go through the slides quickly.
Yeah. Okay, I'll send you the case.
Anybody else?
Okay.
So
it's
we'll go
3.
quickly through the slides, and if we have 10 minutes for the case, we'll try to
3
do
for
that.
slides.
Oh, 3 for slides.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll keep going.
All right. Review slides quickly. Yes.
Okay.
All right. So next we're going to talk a little bit about some of the survivorship intake forms, which help us to assess things like the concerns that survivors have coming into the clinic, their overall well-being, and we do that through a number of forms, which we'll go through here, as well as some forms that come up after the visit as well.
Okay, this is Angela, the social worker on the team. And so just really quickly, this is the distress screening tool. And so for those of you who are not familiar with this, it was developed in 1998 and it was adopted by the National Comprehensive Cancer Network, referred to as the NCCN. In 2012, the American College of Surgeons Commission on Cancer added distress screening to its accreditation standards. So many of you might already be very familiar with this tool because all of us should be using it if we're wanting to be a comprehensive cancer center. So anyway, what I like about this tool is it really helps us to target our visit with the patients. When they first arrive in our clinic, we ask them to rate their level of distress from 0 to 10 within the last week. Okay, 0 being no distress, 10 being extreme distress. For those of you that are not familiar with this tool, a 4 is the cutoff. So anybody who is a 4 or above, which is probably most of us on any given day, we're probably a 5 or 6 sometimes. It's required for above for intervention at that point. Now, something to point out as a social worker, it really doesn't matter to me where they score. I'm still going to be meeting with the patient at that point in time and doing a full psychosocial assessment. But what I like about it is what's on the right-hand side of this tool. It really helps me to target my visit with the patient. Okay, so there are particular areas that I would really pay attention to. That way I'm really able to start where the patient is at and provide an assessment and be able to meet their needs while I'm meeting with them in the period of time that I'm with them. And then of course, at the end of the visit, we also have patients complete a distress screening tool. And I would say probably 97 or 98% of the time that goes down. So if someone's a 5, it's not unlikely for them to rate themselves as a 2 or a 3. And as a team, that just helps us recognize and see that just by them meeting with all 4 of us with this multidisciplinary approach, they feel like they've been heard, their needs are getting met, and so it just shows that this is a helpful, beneficial clinic.
So the brief fatigue inventory was developed by MD Anderson, and as a physical therapist, this is actually a highly recommended screening tool by the American Physical Therapy Association. It really is just a snapshot of where the patient is, but it gives me an opportunity to know where they are. And when you look at this screening tool, it's quick. The patient's able to fill it out pretty quickly. And as far as what the numbers kind of mean to you, anything when you take everything up and you average out the score, anything between 4 to 6 is considered moderate fatigue. Anything with a score of 7 or higher is considered high fatigue. So it really does tell me, especially if anybody's recently out of treatment, if they're struggling with cancer-related fatigue, if they're dealing with fatigue from surgery or from radiation, it really helps me cue in as to where I should be targeting and where I should be addressing my session.
All right, and then the other form that people get before they come to see us is the functional assessment of cancer therapy, or the FACT forms. And the great thing is, one, it's very accessible. There's a website listed right on the slide for anyone to go to and get these forms to use in their program. The other thing is that they can be applied to different cancers. So the first 2 forms focus on more general questions that can apply across the board for those who have had cancer. And then the third is specific to that diagnosis with questions targeted towards that diagnosis and the potential treatment they receive. This overall assesses physical well-being, social and family well-being, emotional well-being, and functional well-being. And so it really gives us a full scope of the concerns that survivors come in with, and helps to break down a little bit further what their concerns are, so we can target a little more specifically what their issues are. For example, with if they have depression or depressed mood, what are some of the effects from that depression that they're having? And those are some of the questions on this as well.
So we already have a couple of quick questions from Mary. She wants to know when the patient fills out these surveys. And so the distress thermometer, the fatigue scale, and the FACT are all filled out by the patient when they show up for their visit, so in the waiting room. Other forms, like Maura's going to get to in a minute, those are mailed out ahead of time, or emailed to the patient ahead of time, so that we have that a little bit ahead of time to review.
Do you have any other questions?
Again, there's this, the 4 people seen. Oh, so Amanda just asked a quick question. The 4 people seen are physician's assistant, social worker, PT, and RD, but only billed for PA.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Can you go back real quick, Kevin?
Yes.
So the one thing I like about this is Tara again. The fact form is very helpful with that bottom question. I don't know if you all can see the slides, but it says, I am satisfied with my sex life. And I find this a very helpful tool to start to address sexual health. And this isn't the only way to do it, and certainly we should feel comfortable anyway. But number one, there is a box above it that says, if you prefer not to answer, please mark this box. And you will see patients with a huge X through this box. They do not feel comfortable. They do not want you to bring it up. They don't want to talk about it. And for everyone else, if they're very much satisfied, then we know that we can focus on other things. Or if they're not at all, it feels like a real opening to starting to discuss that. And we have a sexual health clinic, so we make a lot of referrals, and we might mention that here. But there's also other strategies not related to that clinic that we can talk about during usually the medical portion of that visit.
Can I just make a quick comment? This is Angela again. I just wanted to point out, though, that all of us look at all of these forms. Okay, so I look at all of these forms to get a holistic view of the patient and what areas, are going to need to be addressed while they're meeting with us. So.
Hi, it's Maura. For all the dietitians out there, I'm sure you must love this, but as survivors tend to have a higher usage of supplements. Oftentimes they think this is good nutrition, is to take more supplements. And as we know, they're not asked about this directly and often don't report it. So this form, I know it seems crazy, but this actually came out of the lean study where we went through every possible supplement that any woman reported in the lean study, and we compiled this list because people often have a hard time recalling what they take. So it's really meant to be a prompt. And we're actually using this as a data gathering tool for the lean research, where we're trying to get a handle on what's being used, how much, how often. And that's why it's so extensive. And I have grad students that help me do this data entry, and we're working on this ongoing analysis. So it's quite fascinating. So I would just encourage anyone to think about getting some system in place for reporting of supplements. And I'll be doing more of a deep dive into this at our next session under fear of recurrence, because I feel a lot of supplement use is driven by fear of recurrence.
Hi, it's Angelique again. So we use these satisfaction surveys. This is my favorite part, actually, because we get to see the reaction from the patients as to the amazing work that these providers give. It's absolutely wonderful. But we also take this form as well as the beginning form, the intake form to this form, each form. All of the data is entered into Qualtrics, and that provides us with a lot of data that can be manipulated into any question that Tara may have, or Jevin, or any of the providers. But we also use it for constructive criticism. The patients may have some suggestions that we may be able to use. But all of it is recognized in this Qualtrics system for all of the data that we need to track.
And I think what's great, if I can chime in here as well, Jevin here, the concerns that are readdressed again on this post-visit survey gives us an idea of how well we were able to address those initial concerns that the survivors had coming into the visit. And then it gives us an idea of what we need to address moving forward if they were to come back for a follow-up as well. Also, as Angela mentioned before, we do review all of these forms before the visit, and before each survivorship clinic, we meet for anywhere between a half hour or so to a little bit more time to review the survivorship treatment summaries, which outlines the diagnosis and the treatment that the survivor's gone through, and then reviewing their case overall. Again, reviewing some of these forms when they fill these out at the time of the visit, before their visit, reviewing their intake form, which again highlights some of the concerns they had, some of the supplements that Maura mentioned before, their nutrition, how much exercise they're getting, their level of fatigue, and if they've had physical therapy, if they've had any alcohol use or smoking history, and so on. We also review some of their social history at that time, again, mentioning the concerns and overall well-being that they have that day. We rate it on a scale of 0 to 6, 0 being doing great, 6 being at their worst. We review some of the pre-screening tools, as I mentioned, and then develop a plan before seeing the person. And that's really the big highlight of this huddle is even before going in and meeting the person, oftentimes for the first time, we'll have an idea of some of the referrals we want to make, some of the topics we want to discuss, and maybe even some of the treatment effects that we're going to be talking about given the treatments they've received.
Jevin, can I ask a quick question
Yeah.
From the chat room? Why are the forms not electronic?
Okay, so the question we had is why are the forms not electronic? We actually do have the forms available to be sent through email, and maybe Kiki, you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so usually with the intake forms, we will either email it to them or mail it in time for them to return it with all of those answers that the team needs. As far as the other forms, we have to have those forms, the pre-forms, done in real time. And sometimes it's a matter of time trying to keep everybody on time, see each patient for a half hour each. So we really have to pay attention to time. And I think sometimes the electronic way may take up too much time just to get it set up. You know, the patients do take their time to fill these forms out. So in real time is what we really need.
We have a database that these end up getting put into through Qualtrics, and we've looked at asking patients to fill them out in that capacity so that they, are electronic and they populate our database, but with the current HIPAA and everything, it's hard to do that. We are, as a system, moving towards all patients being screened with distress thermometers on an iPad, and so eventually we might see better ability to do this within the EPIC system. We've also tried telemedicine visits, and those have also been with electronic surveys, but and we can talk about some of the challenges if you're interested in what we've seen there. One thing that I would like to say is if you take nothing away from all of this, asking patients to free text their top 2 concerns has been, I think, practice changing for us. It lets you know where the patient's at. And I think if you do nothing else, we do a lot of paperwork here. If I was asked to choose just one thing, I would ask them what are their top 2 concerns. And we can send you that survey that we use that's a validated tool. But meeting the patient where they are and knowing ahead of time, like what is it they're hoping to talk about has been, it's just practice changing, and it's so simple and very obvious.
And this is exactly what Tara was talking about. So you can see this is the tool that we use. This is Angela, and we just ask patients to list their top 2 concerns and then rate it on a scale from 0 to 6 as far as how much it's bothering them. And then of course at the end of the visit, we also have them fill out a similar tool that asks them, were your 2 concerns addressed, and if so, can you please rate how well they were addressed for you. So again, as Tara pointed out, it's amazing and really helps guide our practice and our assessment of the patients.
Angelique here, I just wanted to let you know also as well, we do have them put their 2 main concerns down, but when I do speak with the patient on the phone, I tell them that, they should be bringing any issues that they have that they want tackled by the team. So those 2 concerns are the most important, but I tell them everything that you want to discuss, bring it, and the team will help you address it. Okay.
All right. How's everybody doing out there? Still with us?
Any questions before we get to the last couple slides here?
Feel free to unmute your mic or raise your hand. Again, *6 on the phone, unmute, *9 to raise your hand, or enter in the chat. We'd be happy to answer any questions. right. So we're gonna.
So just really quickly, I'll touch upon some of the referrals that we make. Again, we try to handle as much as we can kind of in-house within the members of our team. But sometimes our patients do need to receive outside referrals. So specifically for me in physical therapy, if somebody presents with lymphedema, I will refer them to a lymphedema therapist. If somebody lives far away, if somebody's traveling to us from the other side of the state, and they're looking to get connected with either a physical therapist with oncology background or a personal trainer who has taken the American College of Sports Medicine certification exam, then I'll direct them to the website and figure out who is close to them, and again try to set them up with the most qualified professionals by where they live.
And this is Angela again. Just some of the things that I would be referring patients to would be obviously individual mental health counseling, support groups. We have a meaning-centered psychotherapy cancer survivors group that I will often refer patients to, referring them to integrated medicine, smoking cessation, our SIMS clinic, which is the sexual intimacy and menopause services clinic, referring them to learn, relaxation, deep breathing, mindfulness meditation. So those would just be some of the few things that I would refer patients to.
Can I just say that we had a student come through and observe a few months of clinic, and she compiled a list of the referrals that she saw us making, and she verified them against a chart review, and there were 75 unique referrals that she could identify. So we do a lot more than what we're talking about even today, and we're happy to share all of that with you as well.
And it goes back to this is Jevin here again. It goes back to the slide where we talked about some of the standards and how important it is to utilize those services. And this can be a component of that. And lastly, I just wanted to briefly touch upon the survivorship care plans. I in part helped to generate these for people coming through our clinic. On average, they take about 30 to 90 minutes to complete, and it's an individualized plan for the person coming through, which outlines their diagnosis, their treatment, and follow-up recommendations as well. There are several versions. We use one that's Epic generated within our system, as you can see here on the right. But there are, as I mentioned, several versions through ASCO, which is similar to what we do, a little different formatting. And then Journey Forward and OncoLink, and you can go right to their websites to view them. Specifically, Journey Forward and OncoLink, those can be patient completed or provider completed. And then, like I mentioned, we will talk more about care plans in the future. So, in summary, the new survivorship guidelines highlight the importance of a multidisciplinary team-based approach. Adults who have completed active treatment are eligible for the program, and referrals can be entered by a provider or survivors may self-refer as well. The first appointment is billed as a routine 25-minute office visit, as well as the second, and then follow-ups are free of charge. And there are options for sources of funding for the program, with ours primarily being the Closer to Free bike ride. A survivorship clinic can be held in several settings, though the ideal setting would be non-clinical. There are several intake forms used to screen for the individual's history and needs. Several other services are utilized through referrals from our clinic, and survivorship care plans are an important individualized component of the visit, meant to provide knowledge and recommendations to the survivor. Thank you, everyone. And you might be wondering, what is this picture? Who is this person? We have someone here who can explain that.
It's me, Maura. Closer to Free funds us, and we also ride in it. So this is me riding in the recent Closer to Free, and I did 25 miles, and for an old lady, it took a lot of hard training. But what I did was I wore the names of the women in the lean study, the history of the lean study. So I wore their names in honor of all their hard work, and they inspired me to train to get across the finish line.
Don't let Maura fool you. She rocked it this year.
We wish we were as healthy as Maura.
All right, and with that, we have about a minute here. Maybe we can have time for one maybe 2 questions. If anyone has any lasting thoughts before we go, again, type them into the chat, raise your hand or unmute your mic and just go ahead. On the phone, again, *6, *9 to raise your hand. That's okay. All right, so just some final thoughts. Again, we will send out an email with a reminder for the next session. The next one is going to actually be in 3 weeks from today, the first week of November on that Wednesday, November 3rd, I believe it was, 4th, excuse me, thank you. November 4th, same time as today. It's going to be from 2 to 3.
November 6th.
Excuse me, November 6th, clarifying, November 6th. There'll be that Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. Same meeting ID for the session that day. We're going to be talking about fear of recurrence. And we will send a post-session survey in the follow-up email. We encourage you to consider a case presentation, and the form will be sent to you again. And next time we're going to be flipping the session a little bit. We're going to start with a case presentation. We know these first 2 have been a little bit, back-ended with the didactic portion. So we're going to try to get to that next time for sure, starting with that. And again, if any questions, feel free to reach out, survivorship@yale.edu. You can also fax us 203-737-8357. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. Made it a wonderful session. Thanks for all the discussion. We hope to hear more from you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.